It's sometimes the least effort videos and the least time you put in that just bang the most sometimes. It was my final year of university. I was uploading 3 videos a week on YouTube because it was very much a full-time job. And then I decided, you know what, on top of those 2 aspects of my life, let's just chuck on losing weight.
Okay, so we're episode 10 of the Cool Down podcast. Another guest. This is one that many of you have asked for and we've delivered. It's F1 gaming royalty here today. Welcome, Aarav of the Aarava YouTube channel. How are you, mate? And how the hell are you handling lockdown? And how have you got a trim that's so decent?
I'm alright, mate. Yeah, cheers for having me on. I think you've bigged me up way too much straight away there. But yeah, no, I'm doing alright. Lockdown's been it's been okay. It's been manageable, I guess. Just about. The weekends are harder for sure, but the weekdays, to be honest, being a YouTuber, your weekdays, especially a gaming YouTuber, your weekdays are pretty similar actually. So I can't complain too much in that kind of aspect. And with regard to the trim, it looks a lot better on camera, I think, than it does in person. And that's all
that matters, mate. That's all that matters.
And also I'm pretty sure the back is horrendous. I think everyone's back is horrendous. No matter how good of a haircut barber you are for yourself, the back's just hidden for everyone, so we'll just leave it at that. But yeah, no, handling it okay, as best I think anyone could, I think.
Yeah, it's obviously weird. So, like you say, obviously as a digital content creator, it kind of all melds into one, doesn't it? Yeah. But you were talking about actually something I remember. I saw you posted on Twitter a little while ago about how like CPM's down. Like we're all affected.
Yeah,
like, everyone's affected, and obviously like that's been a big one. I mean, how much has that kind of, in terms of your kind of earnings and how that's been affected by COVID? Because obviously everyone's had, I mean, I was furloughed for a bit. Now I'm kind of having to go back working freelance. Like,
right, okay.
It's just a madness, man, isn't it?
Yeah, I mean, it does affect, it literally affects everyone. There's no one that's like, not affected by it in any kind of way, either it be, their job or mental health or this and that or the other.
Absolutely, man.
I mean, at this point, I'm just thankful that I still am able to have a job that relatively is unaffected in, like, day to day. Yes, the earnings are less because, that's just the way YouTube works. Advertisers don't want to spend their ad money right now because they're all having the pinch of COVID stuff. So, it was to be expected, but I guess for some of us, it was kind of a big shock of how bad it was, basically. But, I'm still grateful that my day-to-day job life's not really affected as much as other people. Like you said, some people, some of my friends I know have been furloughed, or they just, are in this uneasy period where they're going to work, but they don't know how safe it is for them. So, yeah, I'm just happy to still have that there, but it definitely has changed things a lot. But I think it's kind of a new normal now as well, in the same way. It's been like, 10 weeks since we started the lockdown in the UK.
It's weird, isn't it? It's
yeah.
What, 63 days? Hang on, I did a pub quiz yesterday, and it was 62 days yesterday, so it's 63 days we've been in lockdown.
That's
63 days.
I can't even contemplate that. Every day blurs.
I'm gagging for a holiday, man. I'm
gagging just to be able to go to the pub or something, like with mates, like just to have a cold pint off the tap, because it doesn't matter how many cans you buy, it's not the same. It's just not the same.
Tinners don't replicate that.
Exactly.
No way, mate.
Does not.
No way.
You can't replicate also the beer garden feeling in your home. Like, it doesn't matter how many of these Zoom calls I hop in with my friends, like on the weekends. It's not the same as sitting down on a bench, surrounded by, like probably I'm going to try and paint a picture, like a square fence around you, some foliage left and right, just the general sound of merriment. It's just not the same.
It's not, mate. I've seen on your old gram. You're a dark fruits kind of guy as well. I rate that.
Yeah,
I rate that. What's your like? I was going to ask this later because we always get onto alcohol in this podcast. But, what's your tipple of choice? I'm just setting the scene for you, mate.
That's good with me, to be honest. That's my kind of podcast, so it's fine. Yeah, I mean, like you said, when it comes to like starting off drinks on like a night and stuff like that, I definitely always go dark fruit. It's just my go-to. I think both me and my flatmate Niran, we pretty much bleed dark flutes at this point. Like our fridge, it's an odd week if there's not at least 4 cans in the fridge at some point. And then later on the night, probably go to something just like a vodka mixer. Can't go wrong with that, pretty much.
Yeah.
I don't really stray too much away from that. I never really tried wine that much, and the one time I did, I got really drunk, and the hangover was so bad that I didn't touch wine again. So Yeah, I'll
You've
just stick
got
with
to
the
be
vodka.
careful. Wine's a dark horse.
Yes,
man,
it is.
Like people disrespect it and like, oh, it's just for like older people. But nah, man, it's
Yeah.
trust me, that shit will fuck you up, man, if you're not careful.
It's because of that, like the stigma of like that classic sort of like white girl drinking Echo Falls thing. I think.
Yeah, exactly.
But like if you anyone, if you just have a decent amount of wine, like we're talking like 2-3 glasses, full ones. You know, you're going to get messed up pretty quickly. And the hangover, for some reason, I don't know why. There must be some scientific reason, but the hangover is always much worse than like vodka.
Echo Falls will end you if you don't give it the respect it deserves. But anyway, look, we'll get onto more of that later. Of course, I'm desperate, but we need to talk, of course, about Formula One.
Yeah.
As much as we can, because we're all clutching at straws. But of course, you, my friend, have just dropped a brand new series. I wanted to get onto that very first and foremost, My Driver.
Yeah.
So to anyone who doesn't know, maybe give a little kind of background onto what this kind of very unique series is.
Right, yeah. So
to F1 YouTube.
F1 My Driver was a series I started back in 2016, right at the beginning of 2016, and it based on the F1 game, of course. It's like a career mode series. It ran on when I first did it, 3 different F1 games. For 3 years and spanned 8 seasons, if you will. And it's like this career mode where I came up with the idea because at the time, obviously, Honda was really bad in Formula One. And I still am a massive Jenson Button fan, but when he was in F1, it was very difficult to support him and, you know, enjoy the F1 races being a supporter of him and the Honda engine being so bad. So I came up with this idea of, you know, what if the Honda engine was actually pretty good when it came back into Formula One? And also at the same time, little context, back on F1 2015, which was the game I started on, there was no career mode in the game. It launched without a career mode for some reason. Like, it was this brand new F1 game on the new generation of consoles at the time, the PS4 and Xbox One. And for some reason, they decided to ship it without a career mode because, yeah, top tier marketing and like decision making there.
That sounds like an EA Sports move. That's what they do on FIFA.
Yeah, I mean, I still to this day don't understand because they brought it back straight away in 2016 with a bang, and since then, kudos to them, they've really improved it. It's like probably the best sports career mode out there, I think, in my opinion. Maybe just rivaled by like NBA or something like that. But you know, for some reason they didn't launch with one, so I had to make my own one up. By modifying the PC version of the F1 game and just using like Grand Prix mode, like quick race mode. And so it sprouted from just a pretty bad situation with where the F1 game was. Yeah, and then I just went crazy with it. You know, I first of all started modifying the Honda engine to be actually okay, and so that's where the premise started. And then I decided into the second season, you know, what if F1 driver transfers? Because back then, I feel like it was quite boring, F1. F1 wasn't as crazy as it is now. For some reason, I don't really know what the cause is. Maybe, I don't know, more confidence, more money in the sport, drivers becoming a bit more savvy with how much, you know, lean power they have in the sport. I don't know, but for some reason, driver transfers used to be a lot more boring back in the day. And I say back in the day, 2015. So I basically started going crazy with the driver transfers and putting, you know, drivers where fans kind of wanted them to be, or like dream moves. So I had like Ricciardo to Ferrari in like the 3rd season, I think it was. So that was the 2017 year equivalent of the career mode. And so the entire career was 8 seasons, and it was kind of a continuous storyline. Like each season continued into the next. You know, there was driver rivalries that I would create storylines off, and they would continue on throughout the entire series, basically. And yeah, it's pretty much at the time my biggest flagship series. It then ended in 2018 at the end of it, and I decided, you know, that's it. I've done 8 seasons of it, and also as the games went on, it got harder and harder to make the series because Codemasters kept changing things about the game to make it harder for us to do that kind of stuff. So I just gave it a rest. I was like, you know what? It's been a good 8-season run. It's been a lot of work, but now, you know what? I want to try and move on and maybe be a little bit less stressed out week to week, because it was a very stressful series to make, you know, modding it every single week, getting everything ready. And then obviously now, fast forward to now, this year, COVID hit. Obviously a pretty crap time. Everyone's at home. And so the week after the Australian Grand Prix was cancelled, I already started to slowly think about, you know what, it's a really bad time right now. I'm sure people could use a bit of a pick-me-up. And I haven't, people still to this day had asked me to do the series, like week in, week out, when you bring my driver back, So I thought, you know what, this could be a real good feel thing. Let's bring it back for one final mini season of like 11 episodes, like almost like TV shows do when they come back, like little short season.
Yeah, little reboot.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah. So, it took about 2 months then to plan it out essentially, because I had to kind of fit it into my schedule, because I'm quite OCD when it comes to YouTube, quite time management with YouTube, because I started it. Well, it kind of became a part-time job for me during university, so I kind of had to be very on top of my time management. So to this day, I still have an Excel spreadsheet of my schedule day to day of what video I'm doing.
Decent.
So I had to kind of find almost a place to put it, because I planned all this content for F1 with the real-life sport being on as well. So that kind of got canned. So I had to change my schedule for that, and then also find a way of, okay, where I'm going to fit in this 11-episode season. Eventually found the time, obviously. Had to make all the mods, all the different liveries and stuff like that. And eventually relaunched it with Season 9, which was the equivalent of the 2023 season of F1 at that point. So it's been on for a while. And at this point, I've got to a crazy point where you've got teams like Jaguar back in the sport, BMW coming back into the sport, Audi entering.
That's what hooked me, man. I clicked on it, I was like, wait, Porsche?
Yeah.
Wait, Jaguar? I was like, what?
Yeah, because around season 5 of the career, I introduced Jaguar as a team, and I drove for them, and then it just escalated with that. I had Audi in, and then I think season 7 it was I brought in BMW, and then this season's the first time I've had Porsche into it as well. Because it just kind of got to a point where people were wanting more creative decisions from it. It started off very kind of basic, like, okay, Honda's good, we've got few drivers retiring, a few drivers swapping seats, and then it just got to a point where I was like, you know what, why do I need to stick to the kind of confines of F1 as it is now? Why don't I just start, because I was already chucking in drivers that were unfamiliar at the time with people. When I brought in Pierre Gasly and Giovinazzi quite early on to the series when they were still teammates in GP2, and at that point I didn't know who they were. Completely honestly, I didn't follow GP2 or the feeder series as much as I do maybe now with the feeder series in 2020 or 2019 rather, last year. So at the time, I didn't know who Gasly or Giovinazzi were. A lot of my viewers actually didn't know, so it was kind of introducing them to different drivers over the kind of next few seasons. Kept on doing the same thing. I had Sophia Flourish in the series coming in for 1 year, so the first female driver in Formula 1 for a long, long time. And then this season, I've got Jamie Chadwick, who's kind of managed by Veloce, so it's kind of like a little nod to my esports team in that kind of sense. So yeah, it kind of got to a point where I just went crazy with it, and kind of just, especially with the liveries as well, you might have seen just like bonkers liveries, like Monster sponsoring Mercedes and taking over the entire livery, and then like, Audi and Jaguar just kind of, basically just being a bit creative with Photoshop, which I've always been handy at because I used to do art at A-level, so since my teenage years, I've known how to use Photoshop, so it's been a lot easier than maybe other creators to create something like that for the F1 game. So definitely leaning on some of my strengths in that kind of department. But yeah, that's the series. Pretty bonkers career mode series, basically, of like this fantasy world that I've created over the last 3 years, basically, when I stopped in 2018 and then brought it back for one final season.
I mean, it kind of fills the storytelling element of, like, we get that in proper F1 is ultimately that the drivers, it's not just the racing that we buy into, it's everything around it. And obviously what you've been able to recreate with that series is the storytelling side of things, which I think why it's done so well and why people wanted it back so much. Yeah,
for sure. I think I always remember this Sky advert. I think it was for 2014 or 15, where it was like this little edited intro they did. It was like this they like had like scripture writing on like a book of like, oh, it's more than just the race, it's like the story, that the ebb and flow. And ever since then, that kind of got me convinced that I need to start doing more stuff like that, because I was basically, it got to the point where at that point everyone on YouTube was just doing the same sort of thing. They would just play through a career mode like a normal person. You kind of upload how you did, essentially, like your performance. And then I started kind of going in a different direction of, let's stop making career modes just based on my performance of how I'm playing a game, and let's start trying to create a bit of a storyline, basically. Start trying to be a bit more creative with, making driver rivalries, or, trying to be just a bit more, I don't know, just creative in the editing, I guess, in the post-edit once I've done the race. And it went from there. But yeah, like you said, that's what F1's hopefully about. Obviously the hardcore fans can see it for that. I think maybe the casual fans don't see it as that at first, and then maybe they watch a bit more and they kind of see that all coming into play, and things like the Netflix show also definitely help that story aspect come in.
I think it's important for everyone, but I don't think everyone maybe acknowledges it as much as
I mean,
like, certain fans appreciate it and understand that more than others, but actually everyone's involved because of the story side of things.
Yeah, I mean, I think you don't necessarily need to buy into it to enjoy the sport, I think, but it adds that extra element that I think adds that extra enjoyment of the sport. You get more of an appreciation of maybe, when a driver battles another driver on track, like if they've actually got some tension in the air in interviews and between each other and paddock, then you know that there's a lot more going on in the cockpit in their brain. It's not just the mental aspect of, oh, I'm racing someone. They're all human, so there's going to be that little tinge that comes in their mind of, the red mist might descend a little bit, or they just might think, oh, it's this guy. I've got to mince him. I've got to kind of squeeze him out here or something like that. So I think it adds to the enjoyment of the real life sport for sure.
Yeah, I mean, because obviously talking of the drivers being real humans, obviously you've had the opportunity to race with some of these guys over the last kind of couple of months. How's that? Because again, from a viewer's point of view looking in, it does really humanise these lads and makes them kind of, again, when you watch them, like any famous sports star, and they're kind of on their pedestal and they're very difficult to relate to, but it's almost like they've, been chucked in, with you, Tim at Marduk, all these other creators, racing with these guys, and it's like, what's it like just like chatting with them? Because, you're a bit pally now. You're going to get invited down the paddock.
Yeah, I mean, it was I think it was a bit of an easier transition to like get used to that for me personally, because for the last year, I've obviously had this association with Alfa Romeo Racing, with their esports team. So I've been in the paddock a few times, and I've thankfully had the opportunity to film videos with like Kimi Räikkönen playing the F1 game with him last year at Silverstone. Literally just before COVID landed, I went to pre-season testing and shot a video with Giovinazzi and Kubica and just talked to them and joked around with them. So I kind of already gotten used to a little bit of interacting with drivers as if they're just, they're just normal people. And I've always had this thing of, I've never really been that starstruck by celebrities in general. Like, I think the only person would literally be Jensen Button. But usually if I see a celebrity in the street, even if they're in my favorite film or TV show, compared to, I think, most people, I don't have the urge to go over and ask for a photo. I'll just kind of acknowledge that, that's cool. I've seen them. And it's the same thing in the paddock. Like, any time I've been in the paddock, it's been on business. I've been there because I'm part of the Alfa Romeo Racing esports team. So I've never really jumped at taking photos with any of them unless it's kind of a PR thing of like, oh, we should take a photo to kind of market, the video I'm doing with them and stuff like that. So in that kind of sense, I wasn't completely taken aback by chatting to them like that per se, but definitely like the nerves of like being like, right, you're not just chatting to them, you're racing against them in an F1 scenario is insane. Like that, not the Oz GP Veloce did, the kind of first virtual race, I guess you could say, after Australia got cancelled. Like, I don't get nervous for online races anymore, because the last time I competitively raced was back in 2014. Like, I gave up league racing very early on because it wasn't for me. But I enter that lobby for like the practice session, and like you had Lando in there, Van Dorn in there, like practicing with you, and I was like, I am absolutely bricking it. Like, this is. I was like that Danny Dyer video of like, I'm absolutely shitting myself. Like, what have I got myself into? Because
great meme.
Yeah, like how I frauded my way into this situation where I'm racing them on the F1 game. And then came along the 1v1 against Charles Leclerc, which was a different level because it's just you and him. Then there's nowhere to hide.
Just nowhere to hide. Mate.
Yeah, like so Veloce organised all that, and I didn't know at the time that I was going to be 1v1ing him. I knew that there was a possibility of going up against him or someone else, and then Callum, one of the guys at Veloce, just texts me and goes, "Do you know who you're racing, by the way?" I was like, No, I'm not being told. And he was like, okay, just don't poop your pants then. I was like, oh God, I know this has got to be Leclerc. This has got to be it. Lo and behold, then like 2 hours later in our Discord server, the full grid lineup's announced, and it's there. Charles Leclerc, Aarava. Oh God.
It's actually happening.
Yeah, and then, lining up against him on the same row virtually in the F1 game, I'm never going to go wheel to wheel with any F1 driver in real life. So this is the closest thing a mere mortal like me or, anyone can get to going wheel to wheel with an F1 driver. And when you go into those 5 lights, honestly, the most nerve-wracking thing ever. I was probably not as nervous for like my exams in university, exams for other stuff, anything. Like, it was just, your hands are sweating, your heart's pounding, and you kind of like look across the screen to like the little ladder thing on the top left, and you see Aarava, Charles Leclerc, and oh crap, that's not just Charles Leclerc, the AI driver in the F1 game.
No, I was going to say
it's actually Charles Leclerc. Yeah, it's insane. Like that's very, very cool, and just to be able to interact with him in a sense of having like Leclerc jokingly say I'm quite quick at the end of the race. I joked about it on Twitter. I'm like going to take that to the grave, basically, with me. And yeah, joking around with Lando, playing the Carol Baskin TikTok audio for him, and him starting singing along to it because he was just enjoying it so much. Things like that are pretty just weird to think about. Like that's a real thing. But at the same time,
it's mad how like things have what year did you upload your first? Was it 2012? Your very, very first video?
Yes, I think it was 2012. Yes, I think it was. Yeah, it was the early 2012 on the F1 2011 game. It was like a camera pointed at a TV screen.
Yeah.
So yeah, it was.
If you could have said to yourself in 2012 that you'd be racing against Formula One drivers in an esports competition during a global pandemic.
Yeah, I mean this entire timeline we're living in
is mad.
It's just crazy. Like I don't know if you've had it as well. I'm pretty sure everyone maybe has a little bit of that realization that literally in 20 years' time they'll be learning about this year potentially in history books. Like it's just weird.
Literally.
And in 100 years time, if not 20 years time, because that might be still quite recent maybe. In 100 years time, they'll definitely be looking back at this because this is like the first major pandemic for like this for a long, long time. Like obviously, I know things like HIV, being classed as a pandemic, but not as bad as maybe Spanish flu, like so many hundreds of years ago. So it's just crazy,
mate. It's the biggest global like situation since World War II. Like in terms of something that affects literally every single
Good
person.
Example like that. So
like,
it's just weird to think the timeline we're living in of like everything we're doing right now could be micro looked at in the future. Of like stuff, things like this boom of esports, this boom of like, just companies using Zoom calls more often, and then things like this of like, for the racing world, I guess, things of that crossover. It's just very cool to think about like this is going to be looked at as quite a turning point, I guess, for fan interaction, because I think a lot of these drivers, at least definitely Lando Norris, he'll definitely continue doing this because he's been already doing this for 3 years. Like he's nothing new. I think people like Leclerc, of course, he's very new to the game, so hopefully he'll stick around and do maybe a stream here and there. It might be more difficult being a Ferrari driver, but I think he'll hopefully do a stream here and there. But Lando will definitely keep on doing it because he has been for 3 years. So it's definitely a turning point again for F1 of like fan interaction, because there already was one in like 2017 when Liberty Media came in, and so this is another one where it's like another inflection point, I hope, of us getting to see the drivers a bit more and kind of seeing them as more human beings, and almost seeing them as I have got, I've thankfully seen them for myself in the paddock. Hopefully more people like that can see them like that on social media and stuff.
Yeah, absolutely. Because that connection is so important. But of course, we now know, and as we've seen over the last couple of weeks, that just because it's esports doesn't mean you're there's no kind of responsibility and no repercussions to your actions with our apps being dropped by Audi today. What do you make of that? That was a bit of a mad one, wasn't it?
It's pretty nuts to think it's got to that point, really. I'm in really two minds about how to react to it, because we don't know the full context of the Formula E race. I feel I don't know if Formula E is asking every team to enter, and then I don't know. There's a second layer then of the teams being like, right, you drivers are still employed to us, so we can't go real racing. This is what you're employed to do now. We're not going to furlough. I can't even say the word furlough you. You're not going to take a pay cut. We're just going to make you do these virtual races, and basically that's how we're going to get use out of you. If it is the case, I feel like if it is that serious, like if the teams are literally using the drivers contracted to enter these virtual races, and Formula E are officially asking the teams to participate, then I feel like it's down to Audi. It's down to them how they want to respond to it, because then ultimately it's a professional environment. But then you've got the added caveat of, even if it is set up like that, the races are definitely not far from professional, because I think just now I saw a clip on Twitter of someone uploaded a clip of the race just gone, and into turn one, it's just like ping-ponging, like smashing into people into turn one of lap one.
I mean, that's just Formula E, isn't it?
Well, it is Formula E, yeah, but it's like Formula E on steroids, because they can do it even more now, because there's nothing at stake, like it's a virtual race. So there's that kind of headbutting of like, is Formula E and the teams running this professionally? If they are, then they maybe need to clean up their act of like, one, I've seen plenty of criticism of the R Factor mod itself, like people saying the mod's just not very good for Formula E cars. And then the racing itself, clearly the etiquette isn't quite there, or clearly the mod and the game isn't allowing the racing to be as clean as they want it to, like it generally has or was in iRacing for the IndyCar Challenge up until the infamous Indy 500 incident. And then the other side of it is, if it's not like that, if it literally is a case of the teams asking politely, oh, do you mind doing these races for us in our car? Then I guess it's a bit overblown, because if it is just for fun, like the virtual GPs are for Formula One, because literally that's not, the teams have no obligation, the drivers have no obligation. F1 as a sport literally just kindly asks the drivers, do you want to participate? And clearly you can see that coming in, because only 8 drivers are participating, whereas, Formula E, I believe they have a whole grid, don't they? I think, pretty much.
Yeah,
much. I would like to think they're kind of professionally doing it. So there is that kind of argument of, right, which way are you doing it? And if it is, then I guess Audi do have grounds to be that crazy, I guess.
Absolutely. Well, I think they need to be, I think they clearly need to be clearer to the drivers.
Yes.
Otherwise, this whole Ferrucci incident and the one with Pagenaud and now this. And also that I think they need to be more clear to us as viewers, as how are they actually, because I feel with the Indy series, it was very clear that was meant to be a very serious event, and it's not been, whereas with the F1, you're right, it kind of, apart from obviously when you've got the F1 esports guys racing, it's quite clear that they're, on it, taking it seriously. When you've got a combination of celebrities and real drivers and all that, you kind of assume that it's not been quite as serious.
Exactly. But, well, that's the way they set
communication is so important.
Yeah, that's where the way they set that entire day up with is you've got that esports exhibition race, and that's the proper esports race. And then you've got the virtual GP, which is not an esports race. Obviously, F1 market it as esports because they're trying to push their brand of F1 esports and get that logo out there. But if you really deep it, it's not an esports race. It's just a fun little race with real drivers and celebrities. Whereas the IndyCar one, well, first of all, it's run on iRacing, so I always maintain iRacing, you can't really get a non-esports race on iRacing. That entire game is made for esports. There's no career mode. There's no fun mode on there. It's all online racing. You have to pay for certain cars. You have to try and build up a license from the very get-go. So it is an esports game. So, and also, like you said, the way they presented it with, all the very, clever and like unique, TV graphics for the presentation, getting the real TV commentators on board. Basically talking
all
as
the
if
sponsors as well.
Yeah, all the sponsors. They went to the effort of getting people to paint up liveries that looked exactly like the real cars. And the same thing for the Formula E one. They've done that as well, albeit on R Factor, which maybe is not as esports ready in a sense of like people have criticised the mod, but it's still quite a serious game. R Factor, R Factor is a more simulation game than the F1 game ever is, for example. And they've gone to that same effort of they've got the same graphics for Formula E on like the heads-up display, for the ladder timing, and they've got all the liveries. So you would think from the outside, okay, it seems like they're wanting to do it quite seriously. Obviously, we don't know. I would love for Formula E and for the teams to come out and kind of state properly like what the relationship is there. Like, are they actually asking the teams to enter, and are the teams leaning on their contracts with the drivers to make them race, or are they just politely going, mate, have you got some free time on Saturday? Do you want to race in this for us? Obviously, you don't have to, but if you want to, it'd be kind of cool.
Yeah. Because again, both are valid. Like, there's both valid things to do.
Yeah, exactly.
Both
are fun. Because
again, if they put it out there to the world, not just telling the drivers personally, then it it forces the drivers to be like, okay, everyone knows this is serious, so
Yeah,
I
of
better take
course,
it
yeah.
serious.
Like,
Or everyone knows this is a piss up, so we can
yeah,
have fun.
because that's what F1 is with virtual GP.
Yeah,
F1
exactly.
haven't stated it in like a statement per se, but they've told the press when they do the press releases.
When you've got Liam Payne racing,
well,
who
yeah, I
everyone
mean
thinks
that
I
in
look
itself
like, by
tells
the way.
you, but
That's just weird.
Yeah, but like from the get go, from that first race, that the way the press release was, and the way the journalists were reporting on it, clearly it was that sense of, oh, F1 don't have any power over any of these drivers, and the teams don't have any power over them as well, because none of them are leaning on their contracts or anything like that. F1 are literally just going to the drivers as a person, going, do you want to drive for us? And then obviously if you do want to participate, obviously it makes sense for you to drive for your actual sponsored team, but we're using the F1 game, so there's no other way to do it. So of course you're going to drive for your team. So it's not like they're actually, they are obviously in the same car as they would be in real life, but they're not exactly signing up to, take it real seriously and, obviously show their team up in the best light. You've got Lando and Charles mucking about midway through the race. You've got Albon and Leclerc wall riding at Monaco and stuff like that. And you've got all the celebrities, like you said, Liam Payne. You've got the guy who made Despacito in the last race.
Very fun.
It's very clear that it's not an esports race. So I don't know. With Formula E, it seems like that's what they're trying to make it. They're trying to make it a proper esports replacement. But then at the same time, to be fair as well, even if it is serious, does it warrant being fired from your entire real life racing career? There is that, there is that line of like, you can be as serious as you want on esports, but at the really core end of the day, should it really affect a real life driver's actual career?
Does the crime match the punishment?
Yeah.
I mean, it looks like a proper like sly thing to do with the whole, blocking the guy's head so you can't quite see.
The way he went about it is very. Yeah, he knew.
I mean, he's got a big YouTube channel as well, hasn't he? So maybe this is a whole YouTube stunt. Maybe that's like backfired massively. Imagine that'd be jokes. Like he drops a video in like 3 days.
Yeah, it was going to be titled,
gone wrong.
Yeah, it was the original title was going to be, I got a sim racer to race for me and I won the race or something. It's just. It's really weird of where you draw the line of like, does that crime? Because I think I've seen people say, so Pagano obviously took out Lando Norris, and that was in very bad taste. And that was, again, a serious race. And that was, I think, obviously a different thing. Like, App actually cheated and got a ringer in, whereas this is just you being very on sportsmanship, on the track. But, a lot of people hounded him, but ultimately he just got a slap on the wrist for that.
Yeah.
So
I think because the thing is with esports, what this has done is, and I'm sure because obviously you've been involved in esports pre all of this, and now with all this going on, you're still very, very much involved. And it's like this has propelled esports forward about 5-6 years, if you ask me, in terms of recognition around it. But everything else hasn't been able to catch up. It's almost like all of a sudden, like overnight, it's like, okay, shit, this is like meant to be the real thing. Like they haven't had time. Like if we were talking actually 5-6 years down the line, this COVID had never happened, things would have progressed gradually. And I think these things would have been ironed out in much less of a kind of public domain. But because it's been all sudden and all this real sponsor money, because ultimately that was the thing with, one of the big kind of things I said about the Pagano incident is that it's real sponsors putting real money. It's not like it's no different to any other sport just because it's on a video game. Like
it's being put on live TV.
Respect. Yeah, of course, exactly. It's just like any other sport that obviously with motorsport there's a real danger to life, right? If things go wrong, but most other sports don't have that. Esports doesn't have that. Like, as long as everyone, if you're being told to take this seriously, and you're, like you say, drivers in contracts, I mean, not being funny, people going into their office and working, COVID happens, can't go into office, you're expected to work from home. Yeah. Well, as far as I'm concerned, if the drivers are told, right, well, you're going to race on this esports game, it's part of you're under contract, so you're going to do it. Yeah. I think the drivers, I can't sit at home and be like, oh, well, no, because I can't go in the office. I'm just, even though I've got the means to do so, I'm just going to, I don't really fancy it. Yeah. Like, you get fired.
Yeah, exactly, yeah. I mean, that's why I think it's very important. I really hope over this next week or two, some journalist does press the team, be it Audi or a different team or just Formula
Yeah.
E, to ask that question, because with F1, it very much is not like that. Like McLaren are not asking Lando to do anything. They literally just told him, right, yeah, we're just on shutdown, so cool, do whatever you want. We'll try and make some content out of what you're doing, if you don't mind, by the way. And he's gone, yeah, cool, I'm streaming, so if you want to make some content out of that, sure. And then, of course, when Lando's been like, oh, I fancy doing that iRacing stuff, obviously then he's kind of worked with McLaren to make that happen in terms of coordinating with IndyCar. But at the same time, that's still Lando willingly being like, I want to do this race for fun and like join up with this kind of more serious IndyCar thing. He took it seriously and he smashed it, of course. But then with the Formula E thing, I mean, I think there needs more clarity of if they are, because I saw Jean-Eric tweet about, the thing of like, yeah, we're taking it seriously, but it's also, it is just a game. I think it was part of the tweet, and talking about. I think he mentioned. I don't think it was in that wording. I don't think he meant it quite like that, but he meant it in a sense of like, we're taking this seriously, but it is also just a video game at the like brick foundation. And then also he mentioned drivers using him as a breaking point, basically, because he gets crashed into quite a lot. So I think he was going off the base of, this isn't so serious, so why are we taking this so seriously? But I'd almost like to tweet him, and I probably could, because I think he follows me now because of all the Veloce stuff, so I could actually press him about it and ask him like, but Jev, have your team, DS Cheetah, whatever, that I don't follow formally, so I don't know what the full team name is, but whatever the team is, did they ask you to participate officially as a driver, or have they kindly asked you, do you mind taking part in this? We've got this cool little challenge that we want to do. Are you going to do it? If not, we'll just get some other random sim racer in, or, someone else in. Because it doesn't look like it. Because they have the at-home challenge that runs before it, don't they? With like a load of influencers and sim racers. And then they have the race with all the Formula E drivers. So I don't actually think it is the case. I think it is the case of they're literally contractually being obliged to take part in it. So if it is that, I feel like no matter what, it's down to Audi what they want to do. They ultimately contract him, so they are allowed to do whatever the hell they want. Obviously, other Formula E teams might not take it as seriously. That's fine by them, but clearly Audi do. And because obviously Audi also had a bit of thing in the past of getting involved in cheating and stuff like that. So maybe they don't want to take the stance of we're taking a stand. What he's done, bringing in a sim racer, doing all this shady stuff of covering his head with the mic and stuff like that. He's gone to a long length to cheat, so we're not going to accept it. So it's a tough one. It's a really tough one.
It is a tough one. And again, I think these creases will be ironed out long term.
Oh yeah.
But of course, we know that you're with your position. And I want to talk a bit about Alfa Romeo and Veloce. I mean, how did this all come about? What was your first kind of contact with Veloce or Alfa Romeo? How did that kind of begin? Were you looking for an esports opportunity beforehand, or did that just come kind of out of the blue?
Honestly, yeah, it did, not out of the blue per se, but it wasn't something I was actively looking for. I'd always known of content creators getting involved with esports teams, because I've been a big Call of Duty fan for a while now, so I've always seen down the line that Call of Duty teams like Optic of old have got content creators involved, or they've turned their pro players into content creators themselves and push content. So I've always known that the esports world and the YouTube world of general content creation and gaming can have some good overlap, but it wasn't something I was actively looking at. And I think it was what year was it? It was 2018. Early on, Veloce signed Tim McMardick as a content creator early on, and they came out of the blue, and no one really knew who Veloce were at the start, and everyone was like, okay, cool. We kind of all raised our eyebrows at Ben signing to this unknown Veloce esports team. We're like, okay, whatever, cool. And then through the summer, Ben got a few opportunities to go to Silverstone with Veloce, and then we was kind of, okay, cool. They've actually got some meat behind them of being able to give him some opportunities and stuff like that. But at that stage, they were quite small. They didn't really have much going for them in terms of many pro players. Then towards the end of that year, F1 esports obviously started to really creep up properly. They'd started in 2017 with that kind of first outing in Abu Dhabi for the grand finals. And then 2018, they did the first proper pro draft. And that was just before the pro draft started. They signed a few F1 league races, and it was like Veloce, whatever your gamer tag, and he's our he's our esports driver, and we're gonna put him in the pro draft and kind of manage him in the pro draft. And then it came out that Veloce were going to power what was then the Sauber F1 team. Obviously, they were going to rebrand. I think they'd already rebranded to Alfa Romeo Sauber F1, but it wasn't quite the full Alfa Romeo branding. But at the same time, that was when Veloce came to me and was like, do you want to get involved? Like, we'd love to sign you as a content creator because we think we can give you some opportunities to get involved with the sport a bit more via the esports route, via potentially this partnership that we're just about signing. And it was like, I think a week or two before I signed for Veloce, they announced their partnership with the Sauber F1 team. So it kind of all clicked at the right timing. They announced that, and that definitely greased the wheels for me to be like, okay, you're actually talking business. You're not just, you're not kind of, going to pull the wool over my eyes. You actually mean business. You're involved in an actual F1 team. At the time, Ben was still in Australia, so he wasn't able to easily work with Veloce and an F1 team as the ways he's done now, because of course now he's been announced to work with the McLaren Shadow project for their esports team. But back then it wasn't as easy. So the next guy, I guess, to fall in line was me. In a way, because I think globally in terms of that point for just F1 YouTubers, Ben's at the top, then it was me in second, but I was the only person in the UK obviously at that point. So
you'll get him. Keep going.
So so that it kind of organically came about of like, okay, you signed to the team, we definitely want to get you involved with the F1 team, with the esports team. So next thing I knew, I actually went to the Belgium Grand Prix with my friends, just as a little trip, and then literally the week I came back, they Veloce emailed me and they were like, hey, we're doing this event at Milan, do you want to come? I was like, I've just literally landed back from this trip, give me 1 day, let me make some videos in advance and I'll get back to you. I literally worked my arse off, got some videos done in advance, and be like, yeah, cool, fly me out. So they flew me out to Milan the following weekend to do like this, they basically it was quite cool, along the canals, out like far out from the circuit, they had like this little pop-up tent for the esports team. Like, they brought these 2 rigs and they're basically just using it as a way, in conjunction with the fan festival they did out there in Italy, as a way to promote the esports. So you had like the fan festival where they drove the real F1 cars on the roads, and then down below on the canals alongside on the banking they had this tent set up for the Sauber F1 team. Come try out the rig, meet our esports drivers, and just have a fun day. So did that, got to go into the paddock, did a video with then the only junior Sauber driver, Charles Leclerc, and did a little interview with him in the paddock, and then it just went on from there, basically. The following year, in 2019, the relationship kind of stepped up and became a bit more official, because at that point I was just still a Veloce member, a Veloce content creator, and we had some kind of pull with the Sauber F1 team. Then in 2019, it stepped up for giving me this opportunity to become the team principal of the Alfa Romeo Racing esports team. So that would involve, trying to basically help manage the drivers, basically just, because I play the F1 game just not as much as them, but I play it a lot more than, the average person. Yeah. So I can understand the foibles of what they're going through. And also just,
I was going to ask actually what exactly that role kind of involved. Yeah, so it was a practical basis.
It was just day to day. It was more sort of handling the PR stuff of the team. Of any time the F1 or someone wanted a line about the team, it made more sense for me to give that line, because more people, I guess, cared about maybe what I had to say rather than just someone who worked at Veloce, for example. But then at the same time, during the events, it was a case of I was there to just be a bit of a, overseer of, morale, kind of, talk to the drivers about how they're feeling. I can actually relate a bit more to the game. Like, when they're talking about the technical aspects of the game, maybe I can appreciate it more than someone who doesn't play the game week in, week out. So it was just a general kind of being there to kind of boost the team morale, help manage the drivers, but not completely, because obviously we also had a team manager there as well that actually did the more professional things. And then just be there to aid the team in that kind of aspect. And then also like I said, anytime the Alfa Romeo actual F1 team wanted to do stuff with us, it made sense to have me there rather than someone who was unknown in the F1 community, I guess. So it's been some very surreal moments of the Alfa Romeo PR guys just literally handing me their phones and being like, right, can you do a story like you would do on your Instagram account. Just forget the fact that you're now doing it to an account that has like 700k followers, and it's the Alfa Romeo branded account. So that was pretty sick. So that was 2019, and then obviously 2020 now. I just got announced actually like a week ago that I've moved into just an ambassador role because it made more sense to call it that, because it kind of was that essentially last year. It was an ambassador role, and now the kind of team principal role will merge with what was then last year the team manager role, and that will just be one role now. And we're yet to kind of we're yet to announce who's taking over that role, and because there's a lot of changes going on in the background. But
of course.
yeah, so now it's just an ambassador role, kind of neatens up the tag, I guess, and makes it more apparent that I am there for content and there for kind of more PR purposes rather than management. And it just allows me to do more things, I guess, with Alfa Romeo, and kind of a sense of now everyone knows that I'm there for content. So it's kind of a case of, okay, we can just do some fun content things, hopefully, when things get going. I don't know when things will get going, obviously, with this. I don't know if even...
Who knows?
Yeah, because with the esports stuff, they could technically run it from, people, drivers' living rooms. So... Are they going to do a in-person event? I don't know yet. I don't know any insight on that. But that's how the whole thing came about. Basically, was Veloce wanted to sign me as a content creator first of all, knowing that they could give me some opportunities with Alfa Romeo, and it's just blossomed from there in terms of once you start that relationship. All the PR guys at Alfa Romeo now know me and know who I am, and they like what I do in terms of like commentating these not the GP races in the last 3 weeks. I keep getting like WhatsApp messages from the PR guys being like, oh, I'm loving it. Like I love the part where you like give a little shout out to Alfa Romeo cheekily in the com box. Being a little bit biased on the commentary. It's just like you build that relationship. So it's gone from there. And in the same way, Ben will grow that relationship with McLaren, I'm sure, for this next year now, since now Veloce power not only Alfa Romeo, but also McLaren as well.
Absolutely, mate. Because I guess in terms of, and you touched on the commentary side of things, I guess from now going forward, because obviously your career in terms of your F1 stuff and how it's kind of changed, and now you're in the esports, kind of how do you see that moving forward? Because you're very adept to the old commentary, mate. I've been very impressed listening to your stuff, man. Like genuinely, it's really good.
I appreciate
so like, where do you see that kind of moving going forward? Is there any, like, do you have a 5-10 year plan?
I do not have a 5 or even not 10 or 5 year plan. I don't. I probably my plan only goes maybe 1 year of the 1 year of my Excel spreadsheet of content that I want to sort of fill out, basically. But I don't know, honestly. Like with YouTube, it's just very tricky. Like you just.
Do you think you will stay independent? That's one question actually I've got.
I think until there will be a point where I just have to call YouTube quits. I think there will have to be a point where everyone in their lifespan does call it quits in a way of like, this is it. Obviously, a lot of us are still in early stages of our career. Like even 10 years of doing YouTube, you can still call that kind of early compared to maybe some people who do a like quote unquote normal job. They're in that job for like 30 years maybe. They might bounce around different companies. They might be in the same sector for like 10, 20, 30 years. So those of us who've been doing videos for like 10 years now, it's still early days, I guess, of like like you said, esports is still growing. So there's still a long way to go. But for me, I don't know. I think I like the idea of being self-employed, because since an early age, my dad's always drilled into me that just don't work for anyone, just don't work for anyone. And he says it having worked for someone. Like he still works for someone, he still works for a company, and he just tells me like, you're doing well. I'm really happy that you're just doing this thing for yourself, because just don't work for anyone. He's hammered that into me since I was young. So I'm very happy where I am. Being independent allows me to do different things, like my own YouTube videos. And then I can do commentary for Veloce for the Not GP. I can do stuff with Alfa Romeo, and maybe things in the future. Obviously, I've never really marketed myself as a freelance presenter or freelance commentator ever in this space. So I haven't ever cropped into too many opportunities so far of companies wanting me to do one-off commentaries for them or presenting for them. But like you said, maybe now, having done the Not the GP stuff, maybe that might open me up to do that. Maybe it might open other people's eyes to maybe, okay, cool, this guy is maybe okay at commentary. We could get him in for a future thing possibly, because up till now, pretty much everyone's just seen me as a YouTuber. But obviously, part of that YouTube job is commentating. I commentate every single day. So there was that.
You've inadvertently developed that skill.
Yeah, exactly. Because there's a lot of different skills. You got Photoshop skills like thumbnails. You got video editing. You've got the actual racing itself, and then you've got the commentary. My job the racing, at least for me personally, I think other creators might see it differently, but for me, the actual driving itself is maybe less than like, it's probably only 40% of the job, really. Because I'm definitely not a very quick driver. Like, I'm quick enough to make a cool video, but compared to like even Ben, like Ben's actually really quick. So like he can actually go toe to toe with these F1 drivers still, whereas I had like a little bit of a chance when they first started playing the F1 game, but now these F1 drivers have gotten really used to the game, so now I'm nowhere near the pace of them. So for me, it's always been a smaller part. So I guess, maybe it opens me up to do that kind of stuff. Like even Veloce themselves, because I think Hayden, one of the presenters, was telling me that the first race I did that commentary for them, when I went on board, they were keen for me to do it, because at that point I had agreed, I'm not going to race in this one because I wanted a bit of a breather. And then one of them asked me, do you fancy doing some commentary for it? I was like, you know what? Yeah, let's go for it. But obviously the Veloce guys know what I do, and they like what I do, but they didn't know...
They probably could see that would work. Otherwise they wouldn't have said it
they would
to
see
you.
it would work, but they also... And they've said to me that they didn't actually fully know how it would go, because they've seen me do videos, but obviously doing a commentary in a video is very different to doing a commentary live, because you have the art of editing it out.
Absolutely.
Like, also, that's also one caveat though, I will say in a sec, but you can edit out the mistakes, whereas on live, you can't make a mistake, basically. But obviously, thankfully, it's gone very well. I've enjoyed it thoroughly, bouncing off Andy, my co-commentator, and that's been really fun.
The fact that you vibe with him so well is so important.
Yeah,
as well.
exactly. And it's been a lot of fun. But also, that's also why I was very confident that I could do a good job, even if Veloce maybe we think he can do a good job, but we're not actually sure. Obviously, then as soon as I finished that first race, I was getting WhatsApps left, right, and centre being like, "You smashed it, great job." I was like, "Oh, thank the Lord that I like everything I did." But I was quite confident that I could do well, knowing that when you've got that second person, you can bounce off them, and you can take a breather as well, and you can just catch your breath and compose yourself. Whereas when I've commentated my own races, it's just me. So there's no real time for a rest. Like, you're just constantly talking. So pretty much whenever I make a mistake in my commentary, and that's when I cut the clip and I will edit a new clip in to start, it's probably to the point where I need a breath. I need to take a breath or I need to stop talking. But because it's just me, I need to keep the intensity up of just talking with the same intensity, because otherwise it will get quite boring, at least in my opinion. Like, there are other creators for sure that don't talk as fast as I do in commentaries. In general, I'm quite a fast talker. You might notice anyway right now. But I mean,
this interview's been proper easy, mate, because I can just let you go, man, and this thing. Everyone's different, and like some people you need to kind of
push them a little bit more.
You need to chip away a bit more, whereas obviously you're clearly very. And that's the thing, because like people do give YouTubers a hard time. Oh, you're just sitting at home talking to yourself on camera, but you can't underestimate the value of the skills that you grow, and that can be talking to a camera.
It is a skill,
like hearing your own voice.
The key word's growth there. I think people sort of just assume either like you said, that it's like an easy thing to pick up, or they just assume you have that skill already and that you're just doing you're just doing it. But if I look back to my commentaries when I started, they were horrendous. Like, I cringe, even like 2 years ago, I cringe at my commentaries being like, wow, I was like shouting a bit too much.
But that's good. Because that shows how you've moved.
Yeah, obviously you developed. Do move through that.
That isn't good enough anymore.
Yeah,
it was good enough at the time, but now because you've developed and moved on and improved so much. Yeah. That's not that's why like people like talk about they want everything perfect. So I'm just like, you need to draw a line between like getting something done and moving on, rather than just focusing on this one thing and getting it absolutely, because it's never going to be perfect in like 6 months, a year, 2 years
especially
time.
Like if you're starting out, like if anyone's listening that's starting out, like it's never going to be at the level that you're watching current YouTubers at. Like, go back to their videos early on and see how far they've come. Obviously, I guess the level of the average has been raised, definitely, at this stage, but that's also just because equipment's more readily available. Like, when I started,
I think that's more equipment.
Yeah, when I started, these mics were so much more expensive than they are now. Like, the recording equipment, like for the game and stuff like that, was not even existent. Right, they were just like starting out making. Now you've got like 4K devices that can record 4K 60 FPS, whereas before we started out with 720 at 30 FPS and stuff like that. So it's come a long way. So the levels raised, but it's definitely a skill that you just grow on the job, and that maybe people don't realize you do. But yeah, I mean, it's a case of, for me, I was confident of doing that because I do that every day anyway, of just like having to talk vigorously and like, you know, sound excited and whatnot. But having the second person, honestly, it's easier. If I had a second person to commentate with every single day on one of my videos, it would be so much easier, because it is actually so much more enjoyable as well to bounce off someone.
Yeah.
Because you can just take that breather, and when he kind of sets you up for you to come back in for the commentary, you can already start to, like, let's say like an overtake's about to happen on a back straight, and you know he's about to finish because you can kind of hear he's running out of breath, and so he's going to set you up. You can already start to think about the buzzwords you're going to use, maybe what you want to talk about, potentially kind of a bit of background info, you know, that you want to pull out your head to maybe use whilst you talk about the move or something like that. And then as soon as he sets you up, you can just get going, full energy, full beans, and then when you start to run out of steam, you just pass it on to him, and it just ebbs and flows. And it's really fun. It's really nice.
I want to see you and Matty Gallagher on a commentary
Have you
together.
ever seen, I don't know if have you ever seen the olden days where Matt used to be a YouTuber, and we did videos together, like not like commentating. We used to do like live comms whilst we were racing. And the chemistry was always kind of there. I think personally for me, like I have chemistry with Matt, but it's also we're kind of a mismatch in a way of like we've got two kind of a little bit of different styles, I guess, in terms of commentary, and just generally. Yeah,
you're both quite intense.
We're both quite intense, which kind of clashes. But then also I think our style of like the way we go about things maybe is a little bit different to one another, so there might be a little bit of like, you know, fine tuning to do, but it would be kind of cool because for sure I've always, you know, enjoyed doing videos with Matt in the past. Obviously he's still a friend of mine. Basically I've known him since like what was now 2013. You know, I've
go way back, didn't you?
Been on countless nights out I've forgotten with him and all this stuff, so we've got good friend chemistry. It's just a case of I mean, obviously the scenario of us commentating a race properly like that has never come through. The closer we got to is just doing the F1 game and commentating as we race against each other. But that's a little bit less professional, obviously, you know, swearing left, right, and centre and doing all that stuff rather than doing a proper race commentary. So you know what I think. You know what I think's mad, because I know, like, obviously you and Ben and Matt, like, you all used to kind of like race together and that, and how kind of you've all forged careers. I mean, I guess kind of question I wanted to ask is why you? Why Ben? Why have you been successful? What do you put it down to? If you had to say one thing, because so many people try and create gaming content, like it's the most, like in terms of a genre overall, gaming is the one that people, you know, kids who want to get into YouTube, you know, it's the most desired job now of kids. If they don't want to be footballers anymore, they want to be YouTubers. Like why have you been successful where so many others haven't? Yeah, so I think it's kind of different for all three of us, I guess. If we're just talking about us three, of how we've got here. I can only really speak for me personally, what I think has been the reason why I've got to here. But also at the same time, I'll say I think all three of us will fully admit and just say it's also just a lot of luck. Like, we're all very lucky to get here. Like, there is, yes, some skill involved maybe, and, you know, people will point out that we're good at this and that, but also I think there's just an overriding of like right place at the right time, or, you know, doing the right video at the right time, or, you know, knowing the right person at the right time, you know, in the case of maybe Matt getting the job at W2F1, of, you know, knowing the right people and then, you know, being recognized at the right time when he was just, you know, starting to grow quite well on his YouTube channel, and then obviously they saw him and they wanted, you know, him to interview for the job. And then for me and Ben, obviously, we've just done our own independent YouTube thing. I can't speak for Ben of what he thinks has got him to that point. But for me personally, I think one was just perseverance of just like doing it. Because in like 2012, when I started doing it, the community was a lot bigger than it is. I'm talking about just the YouTube community was a lot bigger than it is now, actually, in terms of like people knowing each other and like having that kind of camaraderie, I guess. Like, maybe there's probably more F1 channels out there doing F1 content, be it gaming or like real life stuff like yourself, or, you know, just a mismatch of both and stuff like that. But in terms of people knowing each other, interacting in a community, I think it was a lot more close knit in 2012. So we all knew each other. But then I kind of saw a pattern of like, as the years went on, just people drop like flies, basically. They just like stopped doing it, like either because all of us are either in school or uni, so either they got too busy, or they just fell out of love with making videos, or they fell out of love with F1 sometimes in some cases, I remember. And they just stopped doing it. For me, it was, again, even that's lucky in itself that I never fell out of love, and I've still not fallen out of love with just making a video. Like, it's an addiction at this point for me. Like, it honestly is. It really is probably one of the biggest addictions you can get is the YouTube bug. You just don't realize it because you don't see it as that because it's your work. But it is an addiction.
Yeah, of course.
It is an addiction that I have every single day to make a video and do better, push the channel forward. Like, if I miss an upload, like I didn't upload on this Sunday gone by because I got to a point in the day where I was like, you know what, I'm just really tired. I feel like just having the day off, just relaxing. But the entire rest of that day and the next day, I was mad worried, like, oh god, why haven't I uploaded? Like, this is stupid. Why did I not upload? Like, I should have just got down to work and done it. So it is a bit of an addiction, that kind of sense. So I got, had that perseverance. And then, going back to, like, we started off the podcast talking about my driver, things like that. For me personally, I think that's what set me apart from every other creator, was being able to lean on my kind of more arty side of me and kind of creativity side, and using Photoshop to good use and using it in tandem with the F1 game and creating these storylines and stuff. So for me personally, that was what I think set me apart from everyone else, is like being able to do all that stuff. And at the same time also just being able to do it all by myself as well, because I think a lot of people now can obviously employ people to do their thumbnails, or make even like people use other people's mods off race department and stuff like that, and or maybe hire editors to help them out. But I've always done all of that myself, so it's kind of always been like a jack of all trades kind of thing. So that was maybe not as useful nowadays, because obviously it does kind of sometimes it is useful to have an editor. It is useful to employ people to make your thumbnails, because people could make better thumbnails than you, obviously. But back then it was very useful to know how to do all of that to a decent level, because very early on I feel like my thumbnails stood out from other people's, just what I was doing in videos in terms of my editing style, especially. I think that was, maybe less so now, because now it's a bit of a different game with YouTube. But back then,
of course,
I piled in a lot of time into my editing. Like, I would spend more time editing than any part of the video making process. So when I was growing in 2013 to 2015, I would say, even actually through to 2016, to be fair, like all through my driver, I think in terms of what people are known for in the community, Ben had like his raw speed, like the fact that he was able to be that quick, but also had the natural...
That was his USP, wasn't it?
Yeah, he was that quick, but was also a YouTuber. Like, most people that are quick on the F1 game, unfortunately, don't have the same level of charisma as YouTubers.
No.
So I think, to be fair, there are kind of some, obviously, standouts, like James Baldwin. You had him on the podcast. I think he is probably the shining light of esports drivers. Honestly, like, I really hope that he carries on doing his YouTube stuff, and I hope that he can get into F1 esports, and I hope he can really be competitive, because honestly, out of everyone, he's the only esports driver I've ever met that has the charisma of a YouTuber. Like, he really knows how to talk on camera and just talk with other people and have that kind of sense of like, oh, there's no awkward...
Great rapport.
Yeah, good rapport, exactly.
It was a super easy interview, talking to him. Again, I don't want these to feel like interviews, and this hasn't felt like an interview at all. It's just a conversation, you know what I mean? It's like super easy, and some people don't have that. You're right.
Yeah, so for Ben to be as quick as he was, he's not as like esports level quick, but he's bloody quick. So to be that quick and have that level of charisma to be able to talk in videos, and also have the creativity to make more funnier videos like he's done sometimes as well, I think that's what grew him. And then for me, it was more the kind of creative side of doing the career modes in a very different way to everyone else, and then also having that kind of funny element of like doing these comedy videos where I try and survive the F1 game with like realistic damage and having these massive crashes with AI and stuff like that. So it was that, the perseverance, and then like I said, just a lot of luck, I think, as well. I think you can't deny it. I think every YouTuber out there has a bit of luck, that kind of moment, that Shang moment of like, the thing's going to work out. But at the same time, I think for me personally, it's also just been sort of taking it quite not serious, not like not taking the fun out of it, but I've always not, what's the word I'm trying to look for, really? I've not taken for granted the position I'm in, ever since it became like a part-time job for me during university, because before then it was just a hobby, but then as it started becoming a part-time job, into my final year of uni when I started to think, oh, you know what, maybe I'm going to try and do this as a full-time thing. Ever since then, it's kind of a case of the reason why I try and upload every single day compared to other fellow creators, and why I try and work so hard every day at it is because I feel like an obligation of like, you know, I'm so lucky to be in this position to be able to have this as my full-time job and play a game I enjoy for a full-time job. So it's a case of just like, I feel obligated to work that hard every day, and that hard work allows me to grow the channel in a way. I've never really had a massive viral moment. At least I don't think so. There have been obviously little inflections of like, you know, when the new
of course,
when the new F1 games come out, obviously that's a peak for every creator. But I've never really had a massive blow up moment where, oh, there's been a random month where I've just grown subscribers for some random video blowing up. It's always just been steady growth. And I kind of feel like because of that, I'm never going to get too ahead of myself in terms of expecting anything. I don't expect, you know, a performance on the video. Like, I'm always anxious about how a video is going to perform. Because I never.
Have you never? Do you in terms of your approach to like looking at the views and looking at all that kind of all the analytics?
Yeah.
Are you still very on that?
Unfortunately, that's a curse that I carry still. Is I feel that's because of my like maths brain, because I did engineering at uni, so I've got kind of like a half split of like this artsy side of my brain and this math side of my brain. So I think the math side of me always loves looking at analytics. So, you know, I look at Social Blade every day. I look at my analytics every day because I'm just so interested in that as well. I'm not interested in the trends or like, you know, what video correlates to performing that well and stuff like that. And I go into the analytics of YouTube and
mate, same. I find it fascinating.
Yeah, it's really interesting to like see the reach. You know, of like, so why is this video being recommended more on YouTube than this one? Or, you know, why is this one, you know, come out in this country more often, you know? So I find that really interesting. So I'm looking at that every day. So it's nice because I think it helps me plan videos in a certain way, I guess, in a way, because because I've got that schedule, like an Excel spreadsheet. It does help me plan out my content a bit more. Yeah. But then it's also a massive curse because it's just not healthy. It's just not. It can affect your mood of an entire day. And I've tried especially hard this year to stop doing it as much. In January, for the first time, I took a proper break and I told myself, you know what? When I don't want to upload, I'm not going to upload this month. In January, I took that decision. It was like the first time in 2 years I'd done that, basically. And it was really nice. It was a nice reset, and it meant that in February I could hit the ground running, and I haven't stopped running since. In terms of the channel's been like doing really well since Feb. Obviously, it's been a bit inflated because of the whole pandemic. You know, people being at home and being able to watch more stuff. But it's not good to just look at that much. Like, there's been certainly last year days where I've seen a video come in at 10 out of 10 of your last 10. And it's ruined my day. It's ruined my evening. I'll be like, well, that's cool. That's I'm gonna go. That
was a waste of time.
Honestly, mate, it's gonna be like that was a complete waste of. I'm glad I made that video. Really glad. Like, I'm gonna go. Now's the time to go to my fridge, crack open a bev, and try and forget about this all. Because
get the dark fruits.
Yeah, because what was the point? And then that's the funny thing with YouTube though, because.
Yeah.
Sometimes, and I've spoken to this with my flatmate, who's also a YouTuber, by the way, and I've spoken to other YouTubers about it. Sometimes it's just a fickle place. Like with YouTube videos, it's sometimes the least effort videos and the least time you put in that just bang the most sometimes.
There's no correlation. Effort and output.
Yeah.
No correlation.
So, sometimes it will just come in at number 1 out of 10. And it's like the most, I will fully admit, sometimes it's been the most half-assed video that I've cobbled together. And it's like, oh, okay, cool. That puts you in a good mood. But you've got to remember that there was that previous day where it maybe didn't go so well. And so I've tried to, actively this year try and get into my head. It is just very hit and miss. It is very much like throwing darts at a dartboard and hoping something sticks and hits the bullseye.
Exactly. So, mate. It's a nigh and impossible task, but mate, you're doing incredibly well. Don't need me to tell you that. But let's move on to life outside anyway of career, YouTube, Formula One. I had a little Instagram stalk before this, and I've been aware of your content for a while, so I know some of your backstories. But what I did see on your Instagram, shoe addict.
Yes.
So I'm a self-confessed sneakerhead too. This is something we're clearly both very passionate about. I mean, obviously, I've seen a lot of Yeezys, a lot of Ultra Boosts on your page. What? Talk to me about your kit game, mate. Come on, talk to me.
Yeah, I mean, I massively got into it like 2-3 years ago, basically.
Okay.
So
you're quite new, fairly new.
Yeah, quite new. I never backstory. I never used to care at all about my trainers. And I think the turning point, honestly, and this is going to sound really shallow, really shallow, but basically the turning point. I don't know if you stalked that far on Instagram, but I used to be very overweight. So I lost all my weight at the end of, end of 2016 going into 2017. And that was a switch for me to start caring about how I dressed as well, because I could dress better. Because when you're that big, you can't buy all the clothes you want. You got to buy what fits you, basically. So that was a big reason of why I lost all that weight, was part and parcel of just being very superficial of, you know what, I fancy buying clothes I actually want to buy, you know, I'm kind of sick and tired of it.
So it kind of gave you control.
Yeah, like I'd always seen, you know, you see on adverts and you see, you know, on, you know, TV and all these shows of like people wearing skinny jeans, like these influencers wearing skinny jeans and like sick trainers and stuff like that. And I started to think, you know what, I'm fed up of like wearing these like boot cut jeans or like these baggy jeans and like just bad clothes, and I wanted to like lose weight. That's honestly the majority of the reason why I lost all that weight, was because I just wanted to wear stuff I wanted to wear. I'm not ashamed to say that, but
no.
And with that came caring about what my shoes were like, because beforehand, it was just I would honestly buy one pair of trainers from like Sports Direct, and that would see me through the entire year. Whereas now, obviously, that's changed massively. I would say this year it slowed down a bit because of the whole pandemic. There's no point of getting new sneakers, at least for me right now. So I'm kind of just in saver mode right now. But for
What's your favourite pair?
Right now.
What's your, like, if you had to pick one, if you had to get rid of all the others but just have one grey or pair?
I'm trying to look around now. I've got some shoes on the left and shoes on the right. It's a tricky one. If I had to, like, literally have to wear for a whole year just one pair, it would have to be the pair I rock right now quite often on the daily, just because it's like a combo of stylish, comfy, and durable. Would be it's this collaboration between Neighborhood and Adidas for the Ultra Boost.
Yep.
So it's like the pattern's like almost like Black Panther vibes, where they've got like the white triangles all around the edge, and you've got like this little paint splatter on a black base on black boost on the Ultra Boost silhouette. And it's uncaged as well. So
nice.
Yeah,
Ultra Boost is just mad comfortable. I remember when the first ones dropped, and then no one got them, and then all of a sudden Kanye wore a pair, and then the resale price on those original, like first edition Ultra Boost, the black with the blue on the kind of the back, and then the white boost is like over $1,000. It's like comfortably.
Yeah, I mean they're mad comfy, and they're also just like, especially like depending on the silhouette you choose and like the colorway you choose, they're just really stylish as well. So you get the best of both worlds, really. But I got into them like 2 years ago when I started to care a bit more about the shoes I was wearing. So it just started off looking at like just the basic like Nike or Adidas store of like, you know, what shoes I want to get, and then that slowly escalated then at, you know, following accounts like the shoe supplier, a Soul Supplier and stuff like that. I know the
feeling, mate.
And
I know, I've been at it for a long time. It just
escalated at like following these other accounts, and so now I follow so many sneaker accounts, and like I just follow like so many different like you know, people that are involved in the space, and just get more influence from them of like what they're liking and stuff like that. So it's just gone from there basically. So now I've just got like wild pairs, like probably the most vibrant wacky pair I've got is the Holy, to celebrate Holy. Pharrell Williams did a collaboration with the NMDs, and it's like this it's like this tie dye of like pink, green, purple, and blue on like an uncaged NMD. So that's probably literally that's the word I use. Yeah, just complete bonkers colorways. So really, I don't know. It's just cool to be able to express yourself with sneakers.
It is. It's a money pit, but you know.
Yeah, it is for sure. I'm to be honest, right now I'm liking being on saver mode. I'm saving a lot of money, not buying sneakers. But yeah, it's just fun to be able to be creative with it. Like, you know, also like I said, I also got more into like buying just better clothes basically than I was beforehand. So it's a case of like matching it with your jeans and your top and whatnot. And so I've just got more into just fashion, I guess, in a sense as well.
Yeah. Mate,
so
listen. I used to work in the fashion industry. That's
okay,
been
right.
My,
okay,
that's been my kind of bread and butter. Like, so that helps, like, in terms of getting things a bit cheaper as well.
Yeah, exactly.
But,
so
that's the thing. There's absolutely nothing wrong because I did actually want to touch on your body transformation because obviously that's mate, like, props to you, man, because that's like it's incredible. Like, and it's such a difficult thing, and so many people struggle with. We're not just call it a weight thing, but just having, because by the way you've talked about, you sound like you're much more confident in your own skin now, and
totally,
you were in a position where you weren't happy with how you were looking. And I guess I kind of wanted to ask because there might be I'm sure there's a lot of people listening, because again, even people who big, little, short, skin, whatever, different body shape, who aren't maybe where they want to be. When you look back on that and how and where you were and where you are now, like, ultimately, how has that journey been for you, and how do you kind of feel about that now, looking back?
Well, firstly, I still am actually in disbelief that I actually managed to do it, in a sense, like, because it was a very weird. It was probably it was actually the worst year I chose to lose weight, because it was my final year of university, for engineering. So that's pretty tough.
Yeah, it's a tricky
last
one.
year of engineering degree. At that point, I was uploading 3 videos a week on YouTube because it was very much a full-time job. And then I decided, you know what, on top of those 2 aspects of my life, let's just chuck on losing weight and adding this further stress of counting my calories every day and all this stuff, and, potentially being a little bit more hungry than I usually am, day to day, because I'm not used to it and stuff like that. So yeah, I chose a very weird year to do it, but I don't know, I guess I look back at that and be like, you know what, I'm quite proud that I managed to juggle those 3 at the same time. Because actually, funny enough, Tommy of WTF1, I remember he tweeted me like 2 years ago, something like that, when I first, it was like a year after I lost the weight. I still remember the tweet. He was like, I don't know why, but I just thought of this, and I just don't see how you actually managed to do it. Like, physically, how you handled the 3 things and juggling them. I still don't know. Probably because back then, part and parcel with being that overweight was I didn't actually have much of a social life, because I wasn't actually that confident in myself, like you said. Like, I'm a lot more confident in my own skin, so I didn't have much of a social life back then compared to now, where I've completely flipped it. Like, I used to be a massive maths nerd with a bit of art thrown in there, and then I guess I've switched that completely. I still think deep down I am a nerd inside, because I can't get away from that. My genetics are just built for that, because my dad's very much like that, and I get the art side from my mum.
Yeah.
So it's very much inside me still, but in terms of like the way I go about day-to-day life now, like week in, week out, I think it's very much flipped on its head, in terms of now I'm very outgoing, I feel very extrovert, whereas I used to be quite introvert, I feel. And yeah, I mean, the actual journey itself, it's a bit of a blur now, to be honest, like, because you just don't remember how it felt week in, week out.
Was there like a moment that, like, do you remember when you decided
to do it?
I'm doing this.
Yeah, it was the summer of 2016, and I remember I was getting on my scales at that point, because I was been like thinking about it. Then I left it a month or 2 over summer. Then I started getting those thoughts about wanting to like buy clothes that actually could fit in and that will actually look good. And obviously most fashion labels don't make clothes that are like triple XL in like designer stuff. And then I stepped on the scales one day, and it was like 115 kg, and I was like, this is stupid. This is too much. Like, this is really ridiculous. And it just got to a point where I was like, you know what? I've had enough. I've had enough being this way, and I've had enough not being able to buy these clothes that I want to buy. So I'm going to do it for this reason. And I was so determined. I was like, you know what? This is it. Like, push away all the other stuff. Like a lot of people, when they go on these health journeys, it is for health. Like, they're like, oh, I want to be healthier. I want to be fitter. I can wholeheartedly say, and you could, so maybe, I don't want to be a bad influence on anyone, but honestly, for me, it's never been about that. It's never been about health at all. It's just been about, I was fed up of being that size and looking a certain way and being not confident in myself. And so it was a case of that was the turning point of, because I did try to lose weight in the past before then, and it always failed. Yeah. And at that point I realized, like, deep down, like, you know what, I don't actually care enough about health stuff. I still don't, which is kind of bad in a way, but I don't care enough about it for me to keep at it every week to lose this weight. I need to choose something that I really care more about And honestly, it was the case of, I want some confidence. I want to start going out more. I want to join my friends on nights out and actually enjoy my life on the weekends. And I want to buy these clothes I want to buy. So that was the real turning point of finding. I guess that's the kind of moral of the story. You need to find what really motivates you. And that, for most people, that will be health. So fair play. For me, it's never been health.
But I think confidence is such a, it's such a tricky word, isn't it? Because it's something that, I massively struggled with when I was like secondary school. I remember getting my first job.
It's nothing.
Of course.
It's not like an overnight change. I still right now. I'm actually because during this pandemic, I put on a little bit more weight than I wanted to being at home. So now I've actually literally just 2 weeks ago, I told myself I'm going to get back on it and start getting back on the kind of cutting grind and trying to lose a bit more weight and lose the weight I put on this year. So it never stops. Like losing weight never stops, and also thinking about your body image never stops. So like I said, it is a very tricky thing that I think for a lot of us starts at a very early age, and you kind of grow up with it, and it kind of manifests itself. And it's a thing that you have to kind of live with. Like if anyone kind of thinks it's gonna just go away, it's not. Like I still to this day have I think they kind of call it body dysmorphia, where you look at yourself and you think you look worse than you actually do. Or you look at yourself in photos and think you look worse in the photos than you actually do. So it's something that I battle every single day, every single week, but it's something that you grow to live with, but also manage in a way. And going through a journey like that helps you, because it helps you to just gain that confidence in yourself of, you look at your progress, I constantly always try and look back at those comparison photos to remind myself how far I've come, because it's easy to forget that, and easy to kind of I could easily now like I said, just with this this year, I could easily really go in myself and be like, why have I put on this 2 kg of weight this year? This is absurd. But then in context, I'm like, you know what, it's not all bad, because remember where I was. It's okay, it's not a disaster, just got to reset my mind a bit, get back on it, make sure I stop buying this junk food in the house, and get back onto it. So it's something you just kind of live with, I guess. But in terms of the journey, it was a bit of a blur, but it's just perseverance really, and finding that thing that really motivates you, really honestly.
Because ultimately, like you say about the whole body dysmorphia, it's a perception thing. It's a mental perception of what your body is like. Because I've known lots of I've got really good friends who've gone through exactly that. But also, I guess kind of you've been through that, but also being in the limelight, the kind of the
that
fame
was actually
that has come with
that's actually
your presence. Like how have you dealt with that? As well as, because do you think that was maybe part of why you did it, but also how have you found that person? Because obviously, regardless of the whole you losing the weight, just the amount of stick people get online and dealing with trolls and all that kind of stuff. How's that how have you managed that?
Definitely it didn't. I don't think it actually weighed in on the reason why I wanted to lose weight ultimately, but it definitely was there. You can't get away from the fact that if you are not even overweight, if you're even if you're apparently according to others too skinny, you'll get the same comments of vice versa of people will comment on the way you look when you put yourself in front of the camera on the internet. So I definitely had comments like that where oh, he's so fat or whatever like that. But it never really played on me too much, because I honestly got that sort of comments all the way through growing up through teenage years through into uni and stuff like that. So it was nothing new for me.
Kids can be cruel, man.
But it allowed me to grow quite a thick skin, and that in turn was a really good thing for YouTube, because you need a thick skin for YouTube. If you weren't bullied in school and didn't grow thick skin in school, if you do YouTube, you'll definitely grow thick skin then.
You're gonna have a hard time.
You're gonna have a hard time, or you'll learn the hard way and you will grow that thick skin. So it never really affected me that much and weighed in on the decision, but I can definitely say it's helped out a lot in terms of being confident on the camera like this now, in front of a webcam in my room, being able to just talk to the camera. And then I feel in terms of especially the opportunities I've got lately with going to the paddock, going to do interviews with real drivers, or just having to present in person in front of other people and stuff like that. I think it helps massively internally for me to feel way more confident in myself and my body of being the way I am now, compared to when I used to be so much more self-conscious of it. And then also I think, you can't get away from it, unfortunately. superficially, it just helps a little bit to just be a little bit more attractive when you're on camera. And I feel like I definitely have got a bit more attractive than I was when I was that weight. So in that kind of regard, I don't think anyone will ever admit it, but I think it definitely has helped my career basically move forward to having lost that weight, basically, because it will help me be a bit more marketable. You know, let's say when someone uses me on a Photoshop of a trailer or a poster or whatever, or you know this ambassador role for Alfa Romeo, it helps that I can be a bit more, you know, just I don't know, just the way I look now, definitely, at least in my opinion, compared to how I used to look, definitely I would choose this in terms of you just have to choose A or B to market with. And
that's the important distinction. Like, it's you perceive, your perception of yourself now totally. is and again that's the confidence that is given to you. And so, mate, like, honestly, like, you should, it's, you know, when I, like, obviously you talk about the F1 stuff, but I think that's such an important story that because, you know, you see a lot of, I mean, you see like Bazinga, Ethan Klein, like, his
totally.
kind of body transformation, like, insane, but like yours is equally like impressive in so many ways, man. So, like, good for you, man.
I appreciate that.
Fair play, mate. But anyway, man, we'll go through the quickfire rounds now, and then we've got one last question at the end. All right. So rapid fire, mate.
Okay.
Chilled. We'll get on to bevies, of course. Are you ready, Aarava, for the quickfire round on the Cool Down podcast?
I think so.
So, question 1. Favourite flavour crisps?
Cheese and onion.
Good lad. Yes, I've been waiting for that one. 3 people have said prawn cocktail. Like, what the hell, man? Sociopath.
I could. It's all right. It's all right. Yeah, it's all right. I wouldn't choose it.
It's all right, but it's not quite Carly. Favourite TV show as a kid?
Ooh, How I Met Your Mother. As a kid, as like teenager. That's teenager, I guess.
Yeah. When you were like,
as a little kid, my memory's so bad. Honestly, I wouldn't know. Like, probably on just a Disney Channel show. I'm not gonna lie, something like
that. I like How You Met Your Mother. I forgot about that.
But as a teenager, for sure, How I Met Your Mother. Yeah.
Yeah. All right, decent. Like it. Favorite sport outside F1?
Football.
Who do you support?
Man United.
Okay. Where in the country are you from? You're not from Manchester.
No. I'm from London.
No. But you support Man United.
Yeah. The backstory is my family all support United, so I just started supporting them. Okay. Basically,
that's fair.
Basically, I had no choice. I don't know what their decision was, but I had no choice in the matter of like who I was supporting. Yeah.
That's fair. You didn't purposefully glory hunt. You were just kind of
like all my cousins and everyone just were like, yeah, here you go. Here's your United top when you're like this year's young. Like, here you go. Just gonna stick you in that, and that's who you support.
That was bestowed upon you.
Yeah, exactly. That's the word.
What's your favourite road car of all time?
Ooh, the Ferrari 458 for sure.
Ooh, nice. Yeah, beautiful, man.
Yeah,
that's
a beautiful work of art.
What do you make of the new? You know, what's the SF something that Charles was driving?
Oh yeah,
in Monaco.
I do.
What do you make of that?
I do like it. But there's something about the simplicity of the 458, like the bodywork.
Yeah.
And just alter the little technical details of that car, like the little gill fins you had at the front that kind of went down under air pressure and stuff like that. The kind of spoiler as well. It just is a work of art compared to, I think, the current kind of flagship Ferrari cars. I still appreciate the one that Charles drove.
I think 458's prime Ferrari.
Yeah, I think that's
beyond
that's
like the F40
essence of Ferrari. I feel that car.
Yeah. Mate, absolutely. Couldn't agree more. Favourite band / artist, so music?
Ooh, that's tough.
Who comes to mind straight away?
Martin Garrix, probably.
Nice. Animals. I love a bit of Martin Garrix. I've seen a few your Printworks Instagram pictures.
Yeah,
I've never been. I'd love to go.
Yeah, I'm really into like just my raving and stuff like that. So it's tough to choose one, but I think over the last few years, for sure, Garrix has been a constant of someone I always go back to listen to. And also it was a really funny story. I got to see him live in Abu Dhabi when I was there for the Grand Prix in 2017.
Nice.
So, and that was my first ever like live music event ever that I'd been to.
Really?
So it was kind of a crazy situation to go to, but Garrix for sure.
Decent, nice. All right, so you're on death row.
Okay.
Codemasters have decided to send you to prison for modding their game without their permission to.
Honestly, it feels like that sometimes.
What is your final meal of choice?
A
What's
pepperoni
Aarav
pizza.
eating? Pepperoni pizza. All
Yeah.
right. So, which? Where from?
Ooh, that's tough.
Come on. Come on. This is what I do. Tough
Oh,
questions,
yeah,
man.
you know what? I know. Actually, you know what? I know completely. There's this chain in London called Pizza Union. They only have 3 of them in London. Like this really cheap, like almost like a student pizza place. Banging pizza. Stone
Where
cooked.
in London are they? I think I've been
There's
there.
one near Liverpool Street. There's one near Old
Yeah.
Street, and there's one near Dalston.
Yeah,
It's called
yeah,
Pizza
'cause,
Union.
like,
It's like I would say it's like a student place, but it's also like especially the one on Liverpool Street. When I used to go there a lot, obviously not haven't been there in a
Yeah.
while. But when you sat there at 12, you'd see like one guy in a suit come in with clearly like a piece of paper for an order for an office, and he'd walk out with 12 pizzas in his hand and go back to an office. But it was like for what you got, like proper authentic like Italian stone, like this whole stone clay oven thing, real cheap for really banging pizza, like way better than most places, I would say.
have you been to that place near Liverpool Street? It does the huge slices. I can't remember what it's called.
No, I've heard, I know what you're talking. I know the place. I can't remember the
Mate,
name.
it's
but
sick.
No, I have
It's
not
sick.
been there.
I'll find it.
I
I'll
wanted
find
to
it
go
for you.
there
I'll
one
let-
time.
So good,
Yeah.
man. It tastes amazing. But no, I'm more of a Francomanca kind of guy.
I do. Oh, I'm
Francomanca's-
I'm partial to Francomanca. They're very good.
Francomanca's top
They're very
tier for
good.
me.
Very good.
Because I used to live in Hackney, so I was. I was
Okay,
like
sweet.
5 minutes.
That's where I live right now. That's where I live right now.
Oh, is it?
Yeah, yeah.
Nice area, mate.
Yeah, yeah,
I miss
it
it. Cats or dogs?
Dogs.
Any particular breed?
Labrador.
Ah, love a lab. Cute. The puppies of dogs.
Yeah, yeah, totally.
All right, here we go. Here's the question.
Okay.
Alcoholic beverage of choice. Come on. If you've got one for the rest of your life, you can only drink this one beverage
of my life.
of your life. Come on, man. This is a deep
Are we
question,
talking like
man.
just
Take
the
your
alcohol
time.
version or the actual drink, like the
So it has to be it has to be an assembled drink.
assembled
So it
drink?
could be
Oh, okay.
Yeah.
Okay,
Yeah.
I know the drink. I'll give an explanation why, because it's a really weird one to choose. I feel, for most guys, especially, I would say, it's going to be a screwdriver, a double vodka orange juice,
Okay.
and the only reason is
Good bang for your buck.
the only reason is, and I've scientifically tested this many times, nights out. It's the only mixed drink I can get in a club that I can slam down in 5 seconds without feeling the alcohol whatsoever, and then give it 20 minutes later and it's hit me. So it's the perfect
Okay.
drink for me that I can just slam down 2 at the start of the night, not have to worry for like a whole hour or so. Yeah, it's just that. Because I feel like, you know, with like a vodka Coke or vodka Sprite, I can still taste the vodka. Personally,
Yeah,
obviously
yeah.
people's taste buds are different, so I can still taste the vodka, so I can enjoy them. They're enjoyable. I mean, vodka Sprite over vodka Coke, because Coke you definitely just taste the vodka quite a lot, but
Agree,
I can enjoy them. But if you get a vodka orange juice, for me at least, the orange juice masks the vodka completely. And ultimately, at least for me, when I go, maybe it's different when you go to like a beer garden or something, you just have a few ciders to enjoy yourself, enjoy the company. When you go to, or at least when I go to a club, I'm looking, half the reason I'm there is just looking to get very drunk. To get to get it down me that quickly, it's just got to be vodka orange juice.
Fair play, mate. Fair play. I rate that. We need to go for a drink sometime.
Yeah,
man.
for
That'd
sure,
be funny.
mate.
Absolutely. All right. Favorite racing game of all time. You've got to pick one game, specific game. So it could be like an F1 game back in the day. It could be not F1, maybe. Could be.
I'm gonna go for, just for childhood nostalgia, I'll go for Need for Speed Carbon.
Oh, good shout.
I've
Good
recently
shout.
played
Good
it
game.
again, like last
game.
year or something, and obviously it doesn't hold up now. But the memories I have of that game are just exquisite. Yeah.
Yeah, mate. Quality game. Did you play Underground 2?
Yes, yeah. I played
was-
I played it from Underground. I played pretty much most of the Need for Speeds from Underground.
Yeah. Carbon like smashed the open world.
Oh yeah,
side of
Carbon.
things,
It was
like,
just like, it was
really
the whole.
did,
I
didn't
just
it?
distinctly remember like the canyon runs were just
Yeah.
insane. Like the whole concept of falling off the canyon potentially was just mind-boggling to me.
Oh, exactly, mate. Tell me about quality game. And then last quickfire question: favorite YouTuber outside of Formula One?
That'd probably be Jericho Tucker. So he's sort of like a variety. He's more a streamer now than YouTuber, but he does both still. But he's like a variety gamer, so he does a lot of different things like CS:GO, horror games.
Yep.
You'll just look through like funny Reddits and stuff like that. Call of Duty Warzone, of course, because who's not on that these days? But yeah, I've been watching him since like 2010. Actually, I think I watched like I was watching like one of the first YouTubers I watched that got me into the whole YouTube scene was KSI Shock Horror. But
Obviously.
the other person who wasn't a UK YouTuber was Jericho, and I've watched him ever since. Yeah.
There you go. Amazing. Well, Aarav, we've got one more question.
Okay.
One more question. Stick it at the end. We're back to F1. I want to know what your favourite 2020 livery is of the 2020 cars. And you can't say Alfa Romeo because I know you're...
yeah, I'd be like...
You're going to be biased, so they're off the table.
Yeah,
so
right.
of the other 9.
Okay, of the other 9. I've got to actually think about all the liveries now.
Yeah, well, we ain't seen them for so bloody long, have
no,
we?
I know. We actually haven't. Let's have a think here. Right, well, this is actually quite tough because there are quite a few that I feel like are on the same level. I'm thinking like I feel like the McLaren livery, the Ferrari. Well, Ferrari's sort of timeless in a way, but also at the same time I feel like it's a bit gopping in a sense as well because it's got that weird. Have you noticed that it's got that weird the number sticker they use is not matte, and then the rest of the car's matte, so that kind of takes it out of contention.
Stupid.
I do like the McLaren, but what other? I'm trying to actually think of the other cars.
So you got obviously the Haas, which is quite kind of classic. You got the Alpha Tauri, whatever you want to call it, which isn't my cup of tea, but a lot of people seem to like it because it's new.
I liked it at first, and then I've grown to not like it as much, especially on
the hype. It was a hype, man.
Especially on playing the game, seeing the car on board, it's not the greatest car on board. This is.
Come on, man. Come on, man.
Okay, you know what? I'm just going to go for that. The first team I said, McLaren. McLaren. I like the McLaren. I like
Fair.
the McLaren. Fair. It looks mean.
Fair.
I think from certain angles it looks way better, and I can admit from other angles it looks a little bit boxy and a bit ugly. I will admit, but when it was that reveal, when it first got revealed on the stage, and you didn't kind of notice that it was painted a bit black at the front. It looked like the nose was that thin, and we didn't really clock how matte finish it was, I guess, in the proper light. It was very, very sick. Obviously, in real life, it's a bit different, and so it kind of goes down maybe one little peg for me. I don't know. What's your?
It's actually grown on me, the McLaren. I didn't really rate it when it launched.
Yeah.
But my favourite's the Haas. I love the Haas, man.
I do like that.
It's
definitely the prettiest
really
Haas livery they've ever made, I think.
Yeah.
Like,
it's just well proportioned, man. I don't know. There's something about it. It's not crazy. It's not mad out there.
The shapes they've done on it on the top, like also the little fine details.
Little chevron.
Yeah, the little chevrons and like the detail and like the sharp fin, the front wing of having that kind of matte finish and glossy finish is it's a nice touch. They've definitely done really well, for sure. What do you make of the Mercedes livery? Because I know that was quite polarizing.
I think it was better last year.
Yes, agreed.
I definitely preferred the kind of. I don't like the solid.
I know they've gone for that minimalistic sort of way to go about it, but I just don't think it works as well, especially with the style of livery they have, where it is kind of easy to be very minimalistic with just silver. So I feel like they need to do some complex designs.
That launch car that they had, the one with the simple aero, looked like a fucking birthday cake.
Oh
it was
my god.
It was dead,
when they first revealed the
don't
livery,
launch it.
the livery reveal,
When
it looks much
when
better.
they launched the Ineos
it looks
thing.
much better on the actual car, but on the launch car, oh my god, it probably looked like one of the worst cars on the grid. It looked gopping. It was so bad.
It was great,
and my favourite meme that came out of it was that Brooklyn Nine-Nine meme of Captain Holt with the red hat on. Of just the difference there.
Oh, fucking hell. It was a banger, mate. Yeah. But there we go. We're done, mate.
Oh,
Thank you. This has definitely been the longest, which is great because it's been a great chat, mate.
Yeah, decent chat.
Been good, man.
Yeah.
And thank you again for taking the time. Obviously, everyone listening and watching, I'm sure pretty much everyone knows who Aarava is already. But if you don't know who Aarava is, then go on, son. Give the little sales pitch at the end.
It's just youtube.com/Aarava or _Aarava most social platforms.
There you go. Check out My Driver, man. Great series.
Yeah.
Really enjoyable. And there we go, man. Done.
Sweet.
No outro. Easy.
Nice one.
Simple.